A global report from BetterHelp reveals a growing paradox in mental health care. While people say they support therapy and emotional well-being, nearly 6 in 10 still feel discouraged from seeking help because of lingering stigma. The State of the Stigma survey spans 23 countries and shows how judgment, shame, and fear are still major barriers, especially for young adults. We thought this Mental Health Awareness Month would be the perfect time to talk more about what is happening in mental health by welcoming David Yadish, a therapist with BetterHelp. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me during this really important time to talk about mental health and stigma.
Of course, there was greater acceptance of talking publicly about mental health and the importance of seeking help during the pandemic. I remember Olympian Simone Biles helped so many by taking a step back from competition. This is all in 2020. I feel like things have sort of cooled since then, and a recent study backs that up.
Yes, absolutely. 5 years ago, we really started taking a focus on mental health as a country and being more open to it. But as time goes on, mental health kind of takes that back burner. It's not so much in the news. And, all of these online companies are really working to make mental health accessible and affordable and keep that conversation going so that people have that access that they need and deserve.
That recent study that showed young people, young adults in particular, are reluctant to seek or talk about mental health help. Does that surprise you? I always thought it was sort of the older, our parents, if you will, the older generations.
We see that in the older generations, of course, still, but it did surprise me that Gen Z mentioned that they struggle with thinking it may not work for them, it may not be helpful. It's kind of a surprise, especially with all the news we hear about Gen Z really taking stances and speaking up about how important mental health is. But it shows that stigma and those challenges still exist.
Once people take the step and sort of acknowledge that they need help, it can be so frustrating. I've heard from so many people who say, I tried to find a counselor for my son. There was none available for months, or there's no one in my area, or, I only want to do in person, but everyone is doing it on Zoom. Just finding a professional is very difficult.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, finding a professional back even before the pandemic, before 2020, was a challenge. And then since then, there's wait lists for 6 months, a year in some places.
Right.
And it's really important to find a therapist who you fit with, whether virtual or in person. It's everyone's needs are unique. And, if there's a really small pool of people to access, it makes it harder.
Right. I mean, I remember, thinking back several years, my husband and I were looking for a realtor. We sat down, we listed the qualifications we want the person to have, how much experience we want them to have. We did 3 in-person interviews. I mean, it was like a full search, like you'd think we were finding a nanny, right? So many people don't take all those steps when finding a mental health provider, but that person is, many would argue, much more important to someone's well-being.
Absolutely important in different ways, right? And everyone's interests and their needs in mental health are different, whether it's about culture, rightness of fit, if it's about lived experience, or even the things you're looking for if you have challenges with anxiety or executive function. So, programs like BetterHelp make it really easy because you answer a bunch of questions, you provide that information up front, and then we're able to help match you with a therapist that meets those needs. Usually within less than 48 hours, which is a drastic difference than, a 6-month wait time or trying to search online profiles through hundreds of therapists to find, someone that kind of meets what you're looking for.
Right. It's interesting. We talked about the pandemic, and for sure there was heightened awareness, but I had my eyes opened by, an acquaintance here in the newsroom, younger than me, and I noticed she was coming in early every, certain day of the week. And I said, why are you getting here early? And she goes, well, I take an hour out for therapy during the day, so I back up my work schedule. And I said, are the bosses okay with that? And she goes, they were fine with it. Just that little interaction helped me realize we're sort of in a different place now with this in many ways.
Yeah, I love hearing that because I think, businesses really need to take that stance of how important mental health care is and how important it is to fit in our daily lives, right? Like if you're working 1 job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs sometimes, or have children or family members to take care of, it can be really hard to find an hour, let alone an hour and a half to drive somewhere, to meet someone in an office. So making that accessible, making it so that mental health is part of the conversation and it's meant to meet you where you are, both literally and physically.
Yeah, mental health care is health care. All right, David Yadish, it's a great conversation. I'm glad we were sort of able to open the door. I've been looking forward to talking with you for a while now. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Download Fox Local for more videos on demand.